Pawn stars, Cajun pawn stars, pawn queens, hardcore pawn, whatever the reality pawn TV show you may watch, the result is the same. Those with valuable assets get quick and fair access to cash. Now you can do the same with your domain names. Stay tuned to learn more. 3 messages before today's interview educates and motivates you. First, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need David Westlow of Wiley Ryan. Go search for David Westlow on Domain Sherpa, watch his interview, and you can see for yourself that he can clearly explain issues, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and even help you write your website terms and conditions. David Westlow is the lawyer to call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at newmediaip.com. Second, managing multiple domain name marketplace and auction site accounts is a pain. Inevitably, you forget to sign into one and you lose a great domain, or worse. Now imagine using a single, simple to use and comprehensive control panel to manage all of your accounts. That's Protrata. You can set up search filters, analyze domains, automate bidding, list domain names for sale, buy domains across all major marketplaces. Protrata also has a new semantic engine that builds Google-friendly websites with rich content and network feeds. Sign up at protrata.com to get 20 free credits and start building and monetizing your domains today. Finally, if you have questions about domain names, where should you go to ask them? The answer is dnforum.com. Not only is DN Forum the largest domain name forum in the world, it's the best. You can learn about domain names and the industry, buy and sell domain names, talk about the domain name news that's happening in the industry, and even meet domainers just like yourself. Register for a free DN Forum account and begin advancing your skills and knowledge today. And when you do sign up, send me a friend request so we can connect on DN Forum. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name investor or online entrepreneur directly from the experts. I mentioned a slew of new reality TV shows that are pawn related. Pawn stars, Cajun pawn stars, pawn queens, hardcore pawn. I watch most of them and I find them fascinating. Learning about interesting memorabilia, hearing valuations, watching the negotiations unfold, and seeing people in need of some quick cash walk out the door satisfied. Sometimes the assets are purchased, but most of the time the owner receives a loan on their assets. Today's guest is doing something similar with intellectual property, such as domain names, as the collateral. Today we're joined by Matt Collins, founder of Intellend.com. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you describe the purpose of Intellend?
Intellend.com is designed to fill a need in the domain industry. The domain industry has financing sources out there already, but it doesn't have financing sources that provide really a short-term financial need that is necessary in the domain business. For instance, Intellend.com is designed to do a 30-day transaction. That is all. The customer decides whether to go longer than 30 days, and the customer decides every single month whether to extend the transaction a little bit longer. So it is designed to meet a short-term capital need of the domain industry.
Gotcha. So when you say that there's other financing options available in the market, Matt, what are those? Because, I've got domain names. I'm not sure where I would go to get long-term financing. Banks don't understand me. Unless I know somebody who wants to make me a personal private loan, it seems like there aren't a lot of options.
Well, unfortunately, there are not a lot of options. In fact, I have had discussions with various banks, and they don't want to touch intellectual property type transactions like we do. They certainly don't understand the value of domains, especially the intrinsic value that a lot of domains have. They may understand cash flow domains that are developed from a website, but banks tend to look at that as more of a transient kind of situation. Domainers for years have had to really rely solely on purchase money financing, where they're getting a loan to buy a domain, owner financing, or traditional financing options that may be offered by other companies. Intellend.com is really designed for people who already own domains. We're really not looking to do purchase money transactions yet. We may do that in the future. But as of right now, we're looking for people who have a good portfolio of domains, the domains that have intrinsic value. In other words, domains that have value in and of itself, or websites where the domains have been developed and actually create cash flow. And then customers can use those valuable domains and those quality website businesses to get money from Intellend.com. Then they can use that money to buy new domains or new websites.
Okay, so I understand there are financing options out there. Like I can go to my bank and I can say, here's my 2 years tax returns. Here's the cash flow that's coming off my website, my online publishing business, for example. Can I get a revolving line of credit? And they'll provide financing on a long-term basis to me. So there's a cash flow loan, and I can do seller financing through escrow.com or zenscrow.com or something like that. But what you're doing is different. You're saying we can do cash flow financing. We can do asset financing. If you have intellectual property such as maybe copyrights on a website or patents or trademarks, we can value that and provide you some sort of financing on that. But we're a short-term financing option. We're 30 days, and if you want to extend it 30 days, at a time after that, you can do that.
That is correct.
Okay.
While we do most of our work with domains are really the heart and soul of our business. Mm-hmm. We do look at the other types of intellectual property, such as copyrights, patents, trademarks. But here's the thing. Those have to be income-producing pieces of collateral. Because a patent or a copyright or a trademark may or may not have the intrinsic value that a domain has. Mm-hmm. A domain not only has intrinsic value just because it's a quality domain, but it is more liquid than a patent, trademark, or copyright is. So as a consequence, we can advance more money on a domain that has that intrinsic value.
Got it. Now it's perfectly clear for me. Cash flow on trademarks, copyrights, or patents, or domain names. And domain names are the largest part of your business, and you're saying?
That is correct. And when I say cash flow on copyrights, patents, and trademarks, we're really talking about royalty agreements, something that you have in writing that is verifiable, for lack of a better word, that can be used to show a regular cash flow series, and then we'll make an evaluation based on the cash flow that you're generating.
Awesome. All right. What's the most creative mix of intellectual property assets that you financed to date, Matt?
Well, for the most part, at this point in time, we've stuck mainly to domains. Mm-hmm. So we have a mixture of domains that have that intrinsic value that I mentioned earlier, plus also domains that have websites. For instance, a domain that may be totally worthless can have a high value for us to make a cash advance on if it is producing regular, steady cash flow, be it through a parking business, be it through an affiliate program, or be it through just a website that's been developed on the customer's own. So we have a lot of different options that the customer can have. The key is a customer, like any financial transaction, has to have some kind of value to the collateral that's being put up. Obviously, the more valuable the collateral, the higher the cash advance we can make.
Yep. How long have you been in business, Matt?
Well, Intellend's been in business for about 2 months now. So we're a very new company. We're just getting started. And so far, the market's been very receptive to what we're offering.
So how much have you financed to date, given that you've only been in business for a couple of months?
Well, so far, the collateral that we've financed is well over 6 figures in value. I can't give the exact dollar amount of the loans that we have advanced, because that's privileged information. But I can tell you that the collateral has been substantial. We've had excellent customers. We've done 5-figure deals for individual customers. And so it's been very good for us so far.
Nice. All right. So it's a fascinating business model, and one that I want to dig into because I think a lot of domain name investors can benefit from. But I always like to go back in time, Matt, and figure out how guests got to where they are today. So I want to go back in time right now with you. And I want to jump back and find out what your schooling background is first. What is your educational background?
Well, I'm an undergraduate business major, and then I went to law school, and I've been a practicing lawyer since 1993. In 1995, I got started with an internet company, and it's basically has taken over my practice ever since. As many people are who've been around as long as I have, I got my start on Prodigy. I got an email through Prodigy. I even checked my email once every month or so just to see if anybody bothered to email me. Well, slowly but surely, the internet took over my life. And by about 2000 or so, I was solely an internet attorney. I did internet law exclusively.
Mhm.
Also, starting in 2000, I started branching out into being more active with the customers I had, the clients I had, and taking an interest in some internet ventures that came my way.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost like you get into it, you can't help but make your own investments in the market as well.
That's right. Yeah, they dragged me in. I can't get away.
Yeah. So you're basically focused completely on intellectual property now. Focus on the internet.
Well, from my legal practice, I deal mostly with internet based businesses.
Hmm.
I consider myself an e commerce attorney,
Hmm.
but that really is business to the core. But as an e commerce attorney, I do a lot of software licensing agreements. I work with a lot of companies that run affiliate programs. I work with a lot of clients that are involved in the internet through either hosting activities or through internet marketing. So I have a wide array of clients that I work with in my law practice
Hmm.
that also has helped me learn about the internet, domains, and has given me the foundation to move forward in my internet businesses.
Yeah. Is Intellend.com the first type of pawn company that you've started and run?
No, actually, I was one of the founders of Digipon.com, and we founded that company over 10 years ago. And then I sold my interest in the company.
In
And
what
so
year
I've
did you
been
sell
out,
it?
when did I, gosh, 6 years or so
Okay.
ago. It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
I've been out of the pawn shop business for a long time, maybe even longer than that. Gosh, but I've been out of it for quite a while. And then I learned that Digipon has ceased operations,
Hmm.
and so that got me thinking. I still believe that there is a market for a digital pawn shop business. That the clients are out there, the customers are in there,
Hmm.
and that Digipon's closing did not have any relationship to the industry as a whole. Granted, valuations in the industry have gone down, but I think that there is still a need for the business. There are domain valuations that are worthy of the business, and I strongly believe that Intellend.com will be very successful.
So you sold your interest 6 or so years ago in Digipon. You were doing intellectual property law, focused on e-commerce businesses, and you just came to the realization that, hey, there is still a need for this in the industry. I'm going to start up another business to serve this need.
Yeah, that's correct. When I started Digipon, I took the position as the attorney that I was going to research it. I was going to learn all about pawn shop law, and that I was going to build the infrastructure to make the company successful. And so I have the wealth of knowledge. I have all the research. I have everything needed to start the business. What I didn't have was the financial investors to back the loans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really spent several months putting into place. And once I got that into place, Intellend.com was born and was ready to go to market.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Clearly, if you're a pawnbroker, you need a lot of cash immediately available to do transactions, because you may come across a deal where somebody needs cash immediately. And if you can't satisfy that, you may not get it for the value that you think is fair, that somebody else thinks is fair. So tell me about your investors. You're not the sole investor in Intellend, I take it.
That is correct. We have some financial backers who are basically money guys, and they were very attracted to the rates that a pawn shop business can charge, because a pawn shop business is not subject to usury laws. We have, by Georgia statute, a set a range of interest that we can charge. And so as a consequence, we were able to offer our investors a far better rate of return than they could get in any other kind of business. And that's why it's important that I keep saying that the pawn shop business is really for short-term debt, because the interest rates are high. We have to be totally upfront with you and your viewers right now that in a pawn shop transaction, the interest rate is high, but the trade-off is you get your money instantly.
Yep.
And you can pay it all off in a month and be done.
Right. Yeah, and so I'm going to ask you. I don't want the audience to feel like I'm glossing over the comments about the interest rates, or how much it is, or how it compounds, and all that sort of stuff, because I'm going to dig into those details because I want to know them. But really, I just want to find out about your investors. Are they just friends of yours? How did you meet the investors, and how much capital do you have at your disposal to make loans against domain names and other intellectual property assets?
Well, it's an excellent question. It's really a fortuitous happenstance that I happened to meet these guys. And it was through a third party who made the introduction. They were looking for ways to get their money into the street at a good rate of return. They didn't want to deal with consumer loans per se. So they were looking for an idea on how they could actually get their money out and make a good rate of return. Mm-hmm. And that's when I pitched them on the idea of the pawn shop business. Mm-hmm. Intellend.com was very attractive to them. And they have committed at this time to invest up to $10 million and would like to invest up to $20 million. Obviously, we have money in the bank right now. We've got our first advance from them, and we're still making loans off that first advance. But they have told us that the minute we need more money, they will be happy to send us more so that we can continue to make new transactions. The bottom line is there is no business that can generate the kind of return for a money man, a traditional New York money man, than a pawn shop. There just is no rate of return. The key is to make good quality decisions on valuations, mm-hmm. so that the client has the incentive to pay the transaction back, or in the alternative, if they default, we can monetize it quickly.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about valuations. I want to ask you about why you think domain names are more liquid at the valuation that you're buying than, some of the items that I see on, say, Pawn Stars or something. If I'm going to buy a classic car and I'm going to pay 25% of the street value of it today, or, things like that. But, it's fascinating that you were introduced to, money guys from some other location and that they're backing you. And I want to pursue that just for a minute, Matt, to better understand if there are watchers of Domain Sherpa that are listening to your story and they're thinking to themselves, I've got a business, it's blowing up, I've got the potential to grow my business and pay investors a good interest rate. It's not, what you're going to get from the bank or anything, but a good interest rate, but I need cash fast. What advice do you have for somebody? I know you were introduced from a mutual acquaintance. What advice do you have for somebody that needs to look for financing like that, where somebody will come in and put a good amount of investment into something, looking for a higher rate of return?
Well, the people that I'm talking to, of course, would not be interested in investing in an individual company. What they like about the Intellend.com model is that we basically invest in lots of little companies. We don't make $1 million loans, so generally if one came along, we would look at it. Most of our deals are basically 5-figure to 6-figure, as high as 6-figure deals. That's really the heart and soul of what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's your sweet spot.
Right, that's our sweet spot. So as far as people are looking for the kind of investor you're asking about, mm-hmm. that's really, those people are looking for angel investors. And that's really far different from the people I was talking to.
Yeah.
The advantage I had is that I could talk their game, because they're looking for rate of return. They're looking for money on the street. They're looking to make loans. And really, that's what Intellend does. They're not looking to buy businesses. They don't want to be shareholders in businesses. They don't want to own the customers, but they like to take a quality asset and make a loan on it. And that's what Intellend does.
All right. I understand that. So let me ask you this. According to your website, it lists that you've served as legal counsel for many successful e-commerce companies. We've talked about that, Matt. Are there any of these e-commerce companies that you can name?
Well, actually, due to client confidentiality, I really can't name my clients, but I have been practicing in the internet space for, since 1995. So I've been involved with a bunch of these companies, a lot of e-commerce companies, web hosting companies, domain companies. So it's a pretty wide range of experience that I have.
All right. And do you have a domain name portfolio yourself?
Yes, I've tried to buy and sell domains over the years, but at this point in time, I've basically sold most everything that I have. It's just, I have proven that I am not qualified to buy and sell domains and try to flip them. And certainly I have no skills in HTML. I couldn't develop a name if I had to. So a man has to know his limitations, and fortunately I have found mine.
Yeah. So explain that to me, Matt. What makes you realize that you're not good at buying domain names and flipping them, but other people will trust you with $10 or $20 million to buy domain names at a value that you may have to flip if the loan isn't paid back?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the key to that is that we have developed sort of what we call our secret sauce, and that is our valuation system. And I obviously, because it is our secret sauce, I can't go into details as to how we value domains. But I have a staff of people whose job it is to go into to look at the analytics, to look at the traffic results. If it is a website that's generating revenue or an intellectual property item like a copyright, we want to see the stats. We want to see what the deal is. We want to see what the royalty payments are. Those are a little bit easier to value than domains where we're looking at the intrinsic value, where all you really have to work with maybe parking page results, or even not even that. But an intrinsic value domain is harder to evaluate, obviously, than an established website, copyright, patent, or trademark, because those are all generating cash flow.
Sure.
So cash flow businesses are easier to evaluate, but we still have our secret sauce when it comes to doing valuations on intrinsic value domains.
All right. Okay, so let's get into the details here of Intellend, because I have a ton of questions. Let's see. So we talked about your financial backers out of New York City that were listed in your press release.
Right.
We talked about how much capital you have at your disposal. You have money in the bank to make deals today, and you have access to additional capital if you need it. We talked about cash for all types of intellectual property, websites, copyrights, patents, trademarks that are cash flow based, and you have a valuation for that. And that's very typical to do that type of cash flow. And then you also have domains. But I suspect that the cash flow loans that you're doing, although you do fewer of them, are much more clear cut. You know the cash coming in, you can average it over the past 12 or 24 months. You know how reliable it is. You can put a probability on there, and then you can assign some sort of loan value. You know, cash flow loans are done probably every day and very frequently through the web. But the domain name loans are what I'd like to focus on, because a lot of times there isn't a lot of value on the domain names. People will sell domain names and they'll say, I don't have any data, just value it based on what you think it's worth. Can you give me some guidelines that might be useful to our audience to understand how you value domain names, good domain names from the rest of the pack that you won't invest in?
Well, we do, like I said, part of it is our secret sauce. We do look at analytics. We look at traffic reports. We look at parking revenue, but we also look at what the market is doing. We follow all the auctions very carefully. We watch SATO. We see what's going on with the market as a whole. And so we try to adjust our valuations based on that. There's no doubt that a lot of it has to do with, sort of a gut feeling valuation. But also make no mistake, we do not loan 100% of the value. We can't do that. We have to loan based on a percentage of the value, because that's the only way that we can be liquid. We have to be able to liquidate the domain quickly. And so the market has to be able to support the valuation that we've come up with. And so much like you mentioned earlier with Pawn Stars and Cajun Pawn Stars and all these pawn shows, the bottom line is a pawn shop is only going to offer you a cash advance of a percentage of the total value. Now, for Intellend, we typically value around 30% to 50% is what we're going to be willing to make a cash advance on. And so we have to have that margin of error. We have to have that safety net so that we're quickly able to liquidate the domain if necessary.
Okay, so let's say I have a domain name that is valued at $10,000, right? Your valuation, not my valuation, because my valuation is $1 million or something. So let's say that your valuation is $10,000. Does that mean that you're willing to give a 30-day loan on that $10,000, and you're willing to give me $3,000 to $5,000, the 30 to 50% that you just mentioned?
Yes, that is the way that we're looking at. We're looking at 30 to 50% of our valuation. So in your example, if it was a $10,000 domain, we would offer you between $3,000 and $5,000. And it sort of depends on how liquid we feel the market is. For instance, my understanding is, the market goes up and down, but recently auctions have not been doing too well. So we have to take that in mind. We have to keep that as a consideration.
Yeah.
In the alternative, I'm under pressure from my finance guys to get money in the street. I've got to do deals. And that's why I'm talking to you today and trying to get the word out about Intellend.com, because I have money I have got to invest. I've got to get it out there for my equity people.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a consequence, we right now is probably the best time ever to approach us because we're able to advance more aggressively than we've ever done, ever dreamed would be able to do.
Yeah. Okay, so walk me through the rest of that scenario. I have a $10,000 domain at your valuation. I say, okay, good enough. You loan me, let's just use round numbers, $5,000 because it's a great domain that you think will do well in auctions and it has more liquidity or some other values that your secret sauce has valued. On that $5,000 that you loan me, how much do I owe you in what period of time?
Okay, well, basically every deal is different. We have flexibility with our lenders, so we don't have to follow any set regimen of interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what we do is we look at the deal, we look at the domain, we look at the dollar amount, and we set the pricing for the finance charges based on each individual deal. Mm-hmm. Now, Georgia law says that we can charge up to 25% interest per month.
Wow.
We do not do that. We are way below that. I don't really
Georgia
have
has actually set a law that says
Yeah.
you can charge 25% per month, and they said anything above that is exorbitant.
Right. Yeah, that's exorbitant. Yeah. And in fact, the way Georgia law works is you can charge up to 25% for the first 3 months, and then it's got to be 12% each month thereafter.
Okay.
I can tell you right now, we haven't done a deal yet at 12%. So we're well below the Georgia maximum guidelines. But remember, these are pawn shop guidelines.
Right.
And being a Georgia pawn shop, we're governed by the state of Georgia laws. And so we follow their laws in terms of the way we set up our contracts and our agreements. Mm-hmm. So back to the original question with what is the process? Once we evaluate the domain, we will get the customer an email and say, here's what we can do for you. Mm-hmm. We can loan you $5,000 in the example, and say yes. The customer says yes, I'll get them a contract. The minute they sign the contract, we are ready to go. They do have to transfer the domain to us. So we hold the domain. It is held in one of our escrow accounts.
Okay.
And we have accounts at every single major registrar out there. So it's an easy, quick transfer. And then the minute the transfer is received, I'll wire you the money same day. Mm-hmm. So the domain is basically you sign the contract in the morning, transfer the domain at noon, and have money in your account at 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so back to the interest rate, what's the typical range of interest rates that you charge on a domain like that? Well,
every situation is different. We try to be flexible for the needs of the client. Mm-hmm. Some domains are too good to pass on, and so we will negotiate on the interest rate where we can. But generally speaking, we're looking to charge anywhere from 5% and up per month. But it can be a little bit different from time to time. Sometimes we'll run special promotions, and sometimes the situation requires a higher interest rate.
Okay. So if it was 5%, let's say, because it's a great domain name and you wanted to do it and whatever reason, but it's 5% and up, no higher than 25%, clearly.
Right. That's correct.
So let's just say it was 5%. You loan me $5,000. At the end of 30 days, you would need the $5,000 back plus $250? That's
correct.
Okay. And if I didn't want to pay it back at that time, do I have the right to extend the term of the loan, or does it automatically extend if I don't pay back the capital?
All you have to do to extend the loan is make the finance charge payment. So in this example, you pay your $250 and the loan is automatically extended. Mm-hmm. And the way Georgia pawn shop law works is that you can keep extending the loan month after month after month forever. There is no way that we can ever require you to pay the balance back. Now, that is expensive long-term money. So I have to warn the viewers, this is not a great long-term financial option. But for some customers, this is the only financial option that they have.
Right.
We recommend Intellend.com for truly a short-term business capital need, so that you can pay it back and then move on with your business. But make no mistake, we understand that there are customers who view this as a long-term deal and are going to hold on to the transaction, keep renewing it until they're able to sell the domains, mm-hmm. liquidate other parts of their portfolio, or until other financial segments of their lives improves to the point where they can pay it off.
Sure.
But the good thing is that Intellend.com is more than happy to continue to hold the note. Mm-hmm. We will continue to renew the the agreement every single month as long as the customer wants to.
Okay, so in my example, $10,000 domain, you loan, 30 to 50%. Let's just say it's at the high level of 50%, so I get $5,000. Let's say it's a 10% loan. I need to pay $500 back to you at the end of every single month. If I continue to pay that $500 every single month, there's no problem. You continue to carry the debt, or I continue to carry the debt that you're financing. Now, what happens if I don't pay my $500 at the end of any given month?
Well, Georgia law requires that there's a 10-day grace period.
Okay.
So actually, you got 10 days to pay the finance charge and renew it for another month. So after that 10-day grace period, then at that point we take control of the domain. We use the word default, but really in a pawn transaction there is no such thing as a default, because truly you have already given up control of the domain.
Right.
And so as a consequence, there is no negative credit effect. There is no default in the traditional legal sense of the word. Being a lawyer, I guess I got to define that stuff. I use the word default loosely, but default really isn't the appropriate word, because there is no default in a transaction, in a pawn type transaction. The customer truly has every legal right to not pay the finance charge and just let the agreement expire. Right. And then we assume all the risk. We now own the domain and we can do with it whatever we want. Typically, our plan is to liquidate the domains via an auction or through a private sale. Some domains we may hold on to until market conditions change.
Sure.
We're keeping a flexible option. And of course, if the customer comes back down the road and wants to buy the domain, we're always open to that opportunity also.
Okay. Is there a late fee if I pay after the 30-day term, but before the 10-day late period is up?
No, there's no late fee.
Oh, wow.
No late fee at all. Just all you have to do is pay the finance charge and it automatically rolls it over.
Now, what if I only pay you $400 of the $500 that I owe?
We have to send you that $400 back.
Okay.
Because the bottom line, and that's an important point to make, we cannot take partial payments. We are not allowed to accept partial payments towards the principal. The principal has to be paid all at once or not at all. So you have to pay the finance charge or not at all.
Yeah.
So, and that's basically to prevent, to separate pawn type transactions from traditional financing. A traditional financing deal, you pay a little bit of principal, a little bit of interest every month. In this type of transaction, Intellend.com charges only the finance charge. That's all you pay to renew your deal. So the principal stays outstanding.
Sure.
In effect, it's an interest-only loan.
Yep, and it's very similar to some financing options that you can get on your home, where it's interest only, and then you own a balloon payment at the end of it. In that case, in the home financing case, you must pay that balloon payment at the end of a certain period of time, whereas in your case, it'll just continue indefinitely.
Yeah, we don't have any expirations. Our contracts under Georgia law do not allow us to say this money is due 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
The law says we specifically have to honor a renewal every time the client pays the finance charge.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting that so clearly you're located in Georgia. You need to follow the Georgia law. Was your thought process, I'm in Georgia, I want to stay in the United States to serve clients, rather than moving offshore where you're not bound by any United States laws? Pros and cons. Did you think about that when you formed Intellend?
Well, this is my own philosophy when it comes to going offshore, quote unquote. As an attorney, I've always taken the position that as long as you reside in the United States, the U.S. government can and will find you. That's number one. Number two, Intellend.com is very proud of what we do. We're very proud of the services we offer. I feel that going offshore gives a negative connotation that I don't want to deliver, because I believe that we run a totally legal, legitimate business. We're following Georgia law. Every transaction takes place in Georgia. The domains are sent to us here in Georgia. So we have basically the domicile for the domain is registered here. Mm-hmm. Every transaction occurs pursuant to Georgia law, and we follow the law very, very carefully. Being a lawyer, I have to make sure we follow the law very carefully.
I did hope so, Matt. All right. Yep. So let's, so we talked about a $10,000 domain name that you're financing. That was a single domain name. What if I come to you, Matt, and I have 300 domain names that are valued at $10,000. Does that affect the deal at all? Would I still qualify? Do you look at the quantity of domain names versus the valuation? Clearly a single domain name with a high valuation might be an easier transaction.
Yes, basically, a single domain with a high valuation would probably get us a higher advance amount. A large portfolio of domains, we do that all the time. But the thing is, it is harder to manage. And don't forget, the customer is responsible for the domain renewal fees. So that increases their monthly costs in the transaction, but it's money they would spend anyway. So as a practical matter, we will do large portfolios, small portfolios. We do whatever it takes to get the deal done.
Okay, so it's not a turnoff to you if somebody comes to you with 1,000 domain names that they want to finance versus 2 domain names.
I would be more than happy to do that. Bring me $1 million portfolio with 1,000 names in it. I love that every day of the week.
I would too. What's the minimum asset value that you'll entertain a loan for?
We have not set any minimum asset value. We'll do a $200 loan. We'll do a $500 loan. We do $1,000 loans. We'll do $5,000 loans. And then we do $50,000 loans. So we do a wide range of different financing options based on what the collateral is
$200
worth.
loan, that can't even be worth your time and the wire fees, Matt.
Yeah, well, the customer, if they have that need, that's what we'll do. To some customers, $200 is a life or death situation.
Yep.
To some customers, $50,000 is a life or death situation. So every case is different.
Okay. Any maximum amount?
No, sir, not yet. We haven't hit any yet, but with my financial backers, I feel confident we can meet any maximum that may come in. I am not the least bit worried about that.
Yeah.
Bring me good collateral and we will get a deal done.
Yeah. So this seems a lot better than a typical pawnbroker that's located in a physical location. I watch these shows. I find them fascinating, as I mentioned earlier. And if I want to pawn, let's say I own a $1,000 guitar that I want to pawn, I might expect to get maybe $250 for it at a pawn shop on one of these TV shows after I've negotiated with them for a while. Are you able to offer more, your 30 to 50% of your valuation because you're on the web and you have access to a much larger pool of buyers than a local pawn shop in a specific geographic area?
Yes, I think that's actually a very important part of it is that we can take a domain and go put it on Sato or put it in a traffic auction. We can do that, whereas a pawn shop really is limited to their geographical area. And if no one in their geographical area wants to buy a guitar, then they can't sell it. Whereas I can take the domain that we get and I can sell it to anyone in the world. And so the world is our marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more buyers for guitar.com than my cheap little guitar that I have in the other room here.
That's correct. Yep.
So we talked about valuation formulas. This is the key. I understand how your process works. You determine a value. You tell me, hey, Mike, I think your domain is worth $5,000. I'm willing to give you 30% of it at this interest rate. Take it or leave it. And then the first thing I got to say is, well, is the valuation fair? Is it fair market value for that domain? And that's the $1 million question, right, Matt?
That's a very difficult question. And that's probably the biggest challenge that we have dealt with so far. Many of our customers or potential customers bought domains 10 years ago and paid a lot of money for it. Well, as you well know, and all your viewers know, in 2008, the world collapsed, not only for the real estate market, but also for the domain business. Valuations today still haven't recovered to the point they were at in 2007. And may never recover to the point they were at in 2007.
Right.
So as a consequence, part of our job is to explain to the clients that the domain valuations are not what they thought they would be. They're not what they were when they bought the domain, and that we have to live in the world of 2012. We can't live in the world of 2007. So we have to do business based on the current economic conditions. And while I strongly believe in the domain business, I strongly believe that the domain valuations are going to come back and are going to come up. I think that we have to be a little bit conservative in this at this point in time because they're not back yet. Give it time, yes. But I think that the domain business is still going to be a good quality business to invest in for years to come.
Yeah. So I'm envisioning that people may be interested in this service after they watch the show, Matt. Let's say that you're going to get some spreadsheets emailed to you. Can you give some guidance on the type of domains that you'd like to see and the type of domains that you wouldn't like to see?
That's a good question. First, the domains we don't want to see. I don't want to see anything with trademarks in it. I guess that probably goes without saying. Being a lawyer, I gotta give that kind of disclaimer out there. If it is a patently illegal domain, such as something that is, that's trademarked, has a trademark as part of it, or is involved in some kind of illegal activities, we don't want to deal with casinos and poker and things like that. But other than that, we're looking for the two types of domains I mentioned earlier. Domains that have intrinsic value that make them valuable just in and of itself. Keyword domains, domains that are short. Common word domains that are easily marketable. And we're looking for websites that are actively built. And so if you have a domain or portfolio domains of all active websites that are built, then we will more than happy to value those. Just like with the copyrights, trademarks, and patents, cash flow is king. Those are the easiest to value.
Yeah, cash flow is king, and those are easy. But a lot of people have domain names, and they may need some cash, and they don't have cash flow because parking has dried up, and they have no other value to their domain names besides the intrinsic value. So you want to see generic keywords. You want to see short domain names, good brandables, numbers. Do you like numbers?
Yes, numbers work too. Once again, short quality numbers that can be easily associated with products and services, I think can be very valuable. Obviously, if it's a 10-digit number, that may work for a Canadian company, but that's not going to work really that well. But by the same token, send us anything. We'll look at any offer, any domains, any assets that you have, and we'll give it a fair valuation.
Okay, so I understand the cash flow part, but on the domain name part for valuation, you've got this black box. You've got a secret sauce. I need to send you my domain names. You're going to run them through some sort of formula, and then you're going to come back to me and say, hey, Mike, the valuation that I can give you on your domains is X. And is there any way for me to figure that out without sending my domain names to you?
Generally, no. I mean, that we can't. And by the way, we probably won't give you the actual valuation. We're going to tell you what we can advance, what kind of dollars we can advance. I want to be flexible in how I value domains. And so I don't want to come into a situation and say, have someone say, well, man said the domain's worth 10 grand. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, I can give you 5. Okay. I can give you 3,500 or something to that effect.
I'm glad you clarified that.
I don't want to be put on the spot later.
So people who are thinking, oh, I'm just going to email my portfolio to Matt and get free valuations on everything. You're not doing valuations for free.
No, we are not.
You will quote what somebody can get a loan for on that portfolio.
Correct. And that's really the fairest way to treat the customer, because we are not a professional valuation company. We do valuations that are going to be approximate based on what we think we can get for the domain in a fire sale.
Yep.
And that's how we look at it. So the valuation is not really a fair market value valuation of what you can expect to get with proper time to market and sell and promote the domain.
So you just said one thing that I just want to clarify. You will value the domain based on what you think you can get in a fire sale?
Right. We want to know what could the domain sell for as
today,
a liquid
if you
domain
had to sell it today.
If I had to sell it today. And so, but by the same token, when I say I have to sell it today, I'm not talking about only going to Sato. I'm talking about looking at other sales options such as brokerage, third-party selling and marketing. There's a lot of those services available out there. Also running an auction at traffic. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can sell a domain.
Sure.
But I like to think of those all together as the way that we would sell a domain if we had to.
Yep.
And so I want to be able to say, if I had to use one of these different services and options, what would I expect to get from the domain in that kind of situation?
Right. And you have to take into account that you've got costs associated with that. It takes your time or your staff's time to come up with the marketing for the domain. You need to put it into the auction. You're going to have to pay fees against that auction if it sells successfully, and everything else associated with it, the legal paperwork.
Right.
Is there have you found a service online that does fair wholesale valuations that people might be able to use as an estimate for the domain valuation that you may provide? For example, can I go to Estabot, do a valuation of a domain name, and look at the wholesale value, not the retail value, but the wholesale, to see what I think I might be able to get a value for on the domain?
Well, I mean, that is certainly an option a customer has. And frankly, I would advise a customer to send me the results of any kind of service like that. Any kind of evidence or piece of information that a customer has that will help us make a decision is very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
As I said earlier, I want to do deals. I want to get the money out there. I don't know. I am not personally able to set values on domains. That's why I have number crunchers and tech people who do that. But so any information you can give me to help me make my job easier is very much appreciated. So I would not say that necessarily a third party service would clearly help identify what our secret sauce would give up. It may nonetheless influence our secret sauce from a human element. Say, well, they got these appraisals over here. We think the domain is worth X, but the appraisals say Y. We may be better able to increase the amount we would advance in that kind of a situation. So that could be good for the customer.
Yeah. All right. We went over a lot of details of your service, Matt. I'm always interested from a business standpoint how other service providers are marketing their new business. You've been doing this for 2 months. You probably had a game plan going in that you're going to do some sort of marketing, like coming on the show. When we asked you to, you thought that could be a great way to get some promotion and marketing. What other ways are you doing marketing currently, or do you have planned in the future to grow your service business?
Well, that's an excellent question. What we are doing right now is we've purchased a listing in the directory on domaining.com. Mm-hmm. We are also in the process of setting up an affiliate program. Right now, you can contact us directly and we will add you to our affiliate program, but we're going to be adding a new page to the website in the near future where people can sign up online to be an affiliate. And basically, the way the affiliate program is going to work is for every customer you send us who signs a deal and pays the first month finance charge, we will send you a commission on that finance charge. So it is based on, we got to be paid the finance charge at least 1 month in order for the commission to be applicable. But we believe it's a very generous affiliate program. And right now we're going to be paying approximately 3% of the first month's finance charge as a commission to affiliates. I think that's a very attractive affiliate business model, especially for people who run websites catering to the domain business or newsletters or any other kind of marketing system that's in touch with the domain public, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. Get those people to at least know that we're out there. Mm-hmm. I think that every business or individual goes through times when they need cash and they don't have there's no bank that's going to finance them, but they can come to Intellend and get money on the same day. That's an option that needs to be considered. And so I tell people, say, doing a domain pawn is not something that you may want to do, but what about your friends who need the money? Don't they have a right to know about this as an option and make their own business decision? Let them make the decision and you get paid.
You're a good marketer, Matt. I like it. You're always hitting the points. All right. 3% of the money that comes in the door as an affiliate for your service. Now, is that, you said 3% of the first month's money that comes in the door of that interest payment?
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 3% of the total amount financed.
Oh, so if we charge amount financed.
Right. So if we charge a 5% interest rate, we'll pay 3% to the affiliate on the first month. That's an example. If we charge 2%, we'll still pay 3%. But we want to have a very attractive financial return for our affiliates.
I'm sorry. So let me. I just want to clarify one more time. So if I refer you somebody who you finance $10,000, the value is $10,000. Going back to our original example, and let's say you gave them $5,000 on that, and so the monthly payment due back, let's say, is $500 at 10%. Okay. What are they getting 3% of? The $5,000 or the $500 payment?
They're getting 3% of the $5,000.
Wow.
Of the amount financed.
Okay.
So of the $500, they get 300 of it.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Great. I was going to say, if
payment.
it was on the interest payment and you're only paying the first month, well, maybe, going long term would be better. But in this case, 3% of the entire amount financed. That seems very, generous. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. So we talked about that. Let me ask you this. TLDs, Matt. Will you only finance .coms? Is .com always king? Will you finance a .org? What's your feeling about .net, .org, .info, .cc, .ly, all those other TLDs?
Well, I think the TLD world is only going to get bigger. It's growing every day. In the ICANN enrichment program, they're going to keep selling these things. So new TLDs are going to be part of our life. But it's just like any .com. The bottom line is if it's a good quality domain, or if it's a domain that a customer has taken and marketed and created a website, then we'll do the deal all day long.
Well, but yeah, clearly if they have a website that's cash flow, I understand that. But if I came to you with porn.mobi, clearly it doesn't have the same value as porn.com. Is it even worth my time to bring you .mobis or .lys or .infos?
I would say bring us the domains, let us run it through our secret sauce, and let's see what kind of traction it has. Obviously .com is king. It is right now. .nets are second, and .orgs are third, and other TLDs have some values to them. But I would hesitate to say we don't want to see something, because I want to encourage customers to bring us deals, and then we'll make the biggest advance that we possibly can based on the domain.
All right. Makes sense. So people should contact you if they want to be involved in your affiliate program. Should they use a contact form on your website, Intellend, INTELEND.com, not Intellend, Intellend.com, or should they contact you via email?
Well, we don't have the affiliate page up yet.
Okay.
We're working on that. So as of right now, contact me directly, Matt, M-A-T-T, at Intellend, INTELEND.com. So that's Matt, M-A-T-T, at Intellend.com. I'll be happy to set them up with our affiliate program and get them their linking codes.
Yep. All right. I think I've got all of my questions answered here, Matt. Let me bring up the new GTLDs since we broached the subject on, alternate TLDs to .com.
Okay.
And I bring it up with every guest. What do you see happening to the market? Clearly it's getting bigger, but what do you see is going to happen to the market and to the valuations when tens, hundreds of new GTLDs enter the internet in a year or two from now? What will happen to valuations?
Well, I went to the ICANN conference a few years ago when they were first starting this whole conversation about GTLDs. And I believe that GTLDs will have a place in the marketplace. So I think there is going to be an opportunity for people to get good quality GTLD names and develop them and have some intrinsic value, as well as develop domain name websites. So I think that the market from our standpoint, from Intellend's standpoint, is going to accept these new domains. As a general rule, I still think .com is going to be king. If I am going to buy a domain for my business, I want a .com. And that's the way I personally feel. So, from your question, you really want to know how I personally feel. If I'm starting a new business, I didn't go buy Intellend.tv. I bought Intellend.com. And if Intellend's taking, I want to come up with another name. So I feel very strongly about .com as the central source for commerce. It's .com. I think that's the commerce stratus that we should be working in. And that's where I think the future of business is still going to be, with a place for GTLDs that are coming out as well. I don't think it's going to forestall the growth of GTLDs, because I think there is a certain marketing cachet that can be attached to certain GTLDs if they are branded right and can create intrinsic value in its own way. Sort of like the whole .biz was supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't do a who has search beforehand, Matt, to see if you had purchased Intellend.com from somebody else. Was it a hand registration recently?
Yes, it was hand registration. We sort of came out with a name, saw it was available, and took it.
Intellectual property lending, shortened to Intellend, yes. Great brandable name. If you have a follow-up question for Matt, please post it in the comments below, and we'll ask him to come back and answer as many as he can. Matt, if people want to just reach out to you to ask you some questions, they don't want to make it public on the comments, but they want to ask you something, is it okay if they email you at matt@intellend.com?
Absolutely. Please do.
All right. Matt Collins, founder of Intellend.com. Thank you for coming on the show, explaining your new cash advance business that serves the domain name industry as well as other areas, educating us on these intellectual property loans that you do. And thank you for being a domain Sherpa.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.